This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is part 3 of a 6-part set of webinars to discuss the 2022 submission of valuation data into the Department of Management's property valuation system. This particular segment is going to talk about the type of data that you submit to Department of Management and how that data is imported into our online system. When you submit data to Department of Management, you're going to be submitting tax district data, and note that if you don't want to override the district names in the state system, make sure your system places an X for the tax district names. When you import data into the system, it is a file that includes each and every tax district in your county that you're reporting data on. It has a tax district number, which is a 5 or 6-digit state tax district number, has your tax district name up to 100 characters, the property type, which is rural or urban, city ag, yes or no, city exempt, yes or no, TIF, yes or no, and then TIF type would be B for base or I for increment, if it is a TIF, yes, district, or an N, of course, if it's not a TIF. You import the frozen base year for those base districts, the frozen base amount, which is a whole dollar number, the base district code, which is a 5 or 6 state taxing district number, the receiving TIF type. So those symbols simply stand for whether it's a city TIF, a county TIF, a jobs training TIF, or rural improvement zone. You report in the receiving levy authority code. So whoever the TIF is that is receiving the TIF revenue, the levy authority for that entity. And then for each and every class of property, you're going to report the 100% and taxable value by class by each of your tax districts. So again, you report 100% and taxable valuations. Negative numbers or produced negative numbers are not permitted. The 100% valuation is reported in the first column, and taxable value, of course, is the amount calculated after the application of the statutory assessment limitation or rollback as determined by the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue issues those rollback figures formally, typically at the end of October. Valuations for gas and electric utilities are reported. They do pay a replacement tax and are not subject to a statutory assessment limitation. But IDR, when they submit those values to you, they certify both 100% assessed value and taxable value for gas and electric. The rollback for 2022 for fiscal year 24 was issued by Department of Revenue, and it reports an ag property rollback of ag property being taxed at 91.6430%. So that is your ag land and ag buildings. Residential property to be taxed at a percentage of 56.4919%, and utility property to be taxed at a percentage of 100%. Now, commercial, industrial, and railroad property, beginning with the assessment year 2022, are taxed via a 2-tier assessment limitation. The first tier being 56.4919%, so that's our residential value. And that's the percentage that the value of each property unit that exceeds $0 but does not exceed $150,000. It is taxed at that percentage. And then everything over $150,000 is taxed at the 90% rollback that commercial, industrial, and railroad has been subject to over the last several years. So the first $150,000 gets the residential rollback essentially, and then everything over that amount receives the 90% rollback. So that is applicable again for commercial, industrial, and railroad, and is new for the 2022 assessment year. So the data again imported into the system. Property type, rural or urban, so urban within a city, rural outside a city. City ag, yes or no. So a Y is used to flag it as city ag, and those are those urban taxing districts that contain ag property. And when there's ag property within a city, it is taxed at the $3.00375 rate. And that's found in Section 384.1 of the Code of Iowa. So city agricultural property gets a special tax rate from the city, and therefore it has to be in a separate taxing district because it does not have the regular city tax rate. City exempt, yes or no. A Y is used to flag those urban taxing districts that have value exempt from city taxation. Again, this is a situation when a city agrees to a transition for the imposition of city taxes against property within an annexed area. So somebody is coming into the city as part of an annexation, and instead of immediately paying the full city tax rate, a percentage of their value is paying the city rate, and a percentage of their value, the remainder of their value, does not pay the city rate. And so it's sort of eased into the full city rate over a period of years. TIF, yes or no, just indicates that the tax district is part of a TIF situation. So it's either a base or an increment. So yes, then of course, if the tax district is flagged yes for TIF, then the TIF type must be either a B for base or an I for increment. If the tax district gets a no for TIF, then the TIF type is also no. Frozen base year, that's the 4-digit year for the base district. If you haven't actually established the frozen base year yet, you can report 0, but then at the time in which that frozen base year is established, you want to make sure that that's edited and reports an actual year. Frozen base amount. So for those base districts, again, you enter the 100% frozen base year valuation assigned to the district, and that should remain the same in almost all cases. You don't increase the amount for the frozen base field for those budget years when unneeded increment is diverted to the base. Really, your frozen base year is most likely to change if that actual value that is included in the TIF, if there's a portion, for instance, that is amended out of the TIF and is no longer part of the TIF calculation. Base district code for the increment districts, those that are labeled with an I, this is the 5 or 6 digit associated base taxing district number. And keep in mind that the associated base district number is correct. And don't associate base district numbers with more than one increment district. They are a one-to-one association. And again, for the increment districts, the TIF type, this is labeled to identify whether it's a city urban renewal, a county urban renewal, a community college jobs training, or a Z for a rural improvement zone. And the receiving levy authority code, again, for the increment districts, the I districts, this is the official levy authority code for the TIF authority that's receiving the TIF property taxes. So if it's a city TIF, then what's going to be reported here is the city's levy authority code identifier. When we go through our classes of property, of course, we have residential, and dwellings located on ag property have to be classified as residential and listed as residential class. They do get the residential rollback. Line 3 includes farm buildings but excludes residences. Ag land and buildings. Again, this is the only classification that should appear on the ag tax property class are ag land. So in a city, those city ag districts are only going to be listing city ag land. They should not list any other type of property. Commercial and industrial are reported, obviously. Multi-residential class was eliminated starting with this assessment year 2022. So, former multi-residential property is now included with and reported as residential. So, just kind of keep that in mind. What we did with line 6 is rename it back to reserved, starting with this assessment year. So, if you looked at old reports, assessment years prior that multi-res was in effect, then obviously that classification would appear there on line 6, but starting with this year, we're switching that back to a reserved line, so it should be listed as blanks. And former multi-res property is now just a subset of residential and reported with residential class. Line 7 is another reserved line. Railroads are reported on line 8. Utilities without gas and electric, this is the value for those utilities subject to local property taxes as certified by Department of Revenue. You don't include gas and electric here. This is other utility values, and you don't include railroads here. They are on their own line. Line 10 is other and only includes those valuations, part of the valuation base on which the levied tax rate will be computed. It's things like certain interstate bridges, toll bridges, mineral rights, things of that nature. Most counties do not report anything in other. Gross valuation, this is just the sum of lines 1 through 10 for both the 100% and taxable columns. Military exemptions, these are the amount of value that is being exempted due to the military exemption provision. If a military exemption on ag land within a city is partially used in a regular city taxing district, the balance may be deducted from the city ag taxing districts. Again, negative numbers are not permitted, and military exemptions are on line 12 in both the taxable and 100% columns. Total net values is just simply the gross value less the military exemptions. On line 14, you'd enter the gas and electric valuations as certified by Department of Revenue. Only gas and electric should be entered here. Assessed is placed in the 100% column, and taxable is placed in the taxable column. There is no rollback applied here. It's simply reported to you from Department of Revenue as an amount of 100% or assessed value and an amount of taxable value. It is possible for the taxable value to be higher than the 100% value, so just keep that in mind. That is a possibility if you see your numbers and they look that way. If you have any questions, of course, you can follow up with revenue, but just keep that in mind. Open spaces land, that's any value of property acquired by the State Department of Natural Resources under the Open Spaces program, and the number of homestead credit claims for that tax district. If a homestead credit is used partially in a city regular levy taxing district and partially in a city ag district, report it only in the city regular taxing district. And again, negative numbers are not permitted. So we provided an overview of the type of data that you are actually submitting to the system. Again, it is by each and every tax district, the 100% and taxable class for each value for each class, and then certain identifiers for each of those taxing districts as well. When you are ready to import the data file that your software does provide for you, you would go to the Import DAT option once you're logged into the system, and you would choose the file, so that will let the system go out and search for the file or browse for the file you need to use. You select it and click Upload. Again, you select Browse, locate your DAT file. It's going to look something like this typically with a little notebook. It's sort of like a text file, but it's a .dat file. You choose it, it'll appear here, and you select Upload. When you import it, of course, you want it to look like this, and it says provided the validation successfully, click confirm to save the data. When you click confirm, it's going to save the data into our system and populate all those valuation fields. So you're hoping for this, obviously, this green check. And it'll say, of course, data updated successfully once you have saved it. There are some situations that we see each year that are common errors with the upload. So again, what the upload is doing at this outset step is it's making sure your file has certain components to it, that it has all the tax districts that we show in the online valuation system, that they all match, and that you haven't made any changes from one year to another. So some common errors that you might see when you're trying to upload is that a taxing district was switched in your local software from rural to urban or vice versa. So then when you try to upload, it is identifying that, last year this taxing district was a rural taxing district, and now you're saying that it's an urban, and that's not an allowable change. Also, another one is a taxing district switched in the local software from base to increment or vice versa. That would also create an error flag. A taxing district was created or deleted on the local software, but the same change was not made in the valuation system and the state system prior to upload. So if you delete a taxing district on your software and then your file does not include it, but yet you did not delete it on the state system, it's not going to match, and so you're going to get an error. Same thing with an addition. If you are needing to add any tax districts, add any TIF districts or anything, you've got to do it before you try to upload. So that way the system, the online system, will have the same taxing districts as what you're trying to upload. So again, this is showing as an import data error, the following tax district has not been set up in the application. So in this instance, the file that was attempted to be imported, it's saying, okay, yep, this taxing district here was not created in the state system, but it's in the file that you're uploading, and that doesn't work, right? We have to have them match. Another one is you have two taxing districts that include changes to the property type, TIF flag, TIF type, city ag land, or city exempt that are not allowed. So these two taxing districts here are being reported in the data file as property type R, but in our online system, they were property type U for urban, so that doesn't match and that's not allowed. And same thing here, flag was changed. These were changed from, changed to a city ag district in the file that you're trying to upload, so in your local software, but in the state's online system, they were not city ag. These taxing district numbers were not city ag, so that doesn't match. So there can be a variety of issues that you might face when you're trying to upload data into your system. If you're seeing errors and you're not sure what might be causing them, the easiest thing to do is probably send me an email with a screenshot of your error. That way I can see the kind of error that's appearing for you, and we can work together to try to figure out your issue. Oftentimes, though, it is simply a matter of what you have in your local software is not agreeing with what the state system has. So it's probably just a matter of a change needs to be made in the state system that you have not made yet. But again, please contact me if you have any questions. You can reach me by my phone or by my email. Thank you.